Resurrection Mary is one of Chicago's most chilling ghost stories, a tale that has haunted Archer Avenue for nearly a century. This desolate road, often shrouded in fog and silence, becomes something far more sinister after dark. Travelers have reported strange occurrences along its stretch, but none are as terrifying or as well known as the story of the ghostly hitchhiker in white. The legend begins in the 1930s with a young woman named Mary, a lover of music and dance. She was vibrant, carefree, and known for her beauty. One cold evening, Mary attended a lively event at the O. Henry Ballroom, a popular venue just off Archer Avenue. The dance floor was packed, the music joyful, but the night took a tragic turn. After an argument with her date, Mary stormed out of the ballroom, refusing to ride home with him. Dressed in her elegant white gown, she stepped into the cold Chicago night, the thin fabric of her dress no match for the icy wind. Mary began walking alone down Archer Avenue, her heels clicking faintly against the cracked pavement, the only sound in the eerie quiet of the late hour. The road stretched endlessly into darkness, lined with twisted trees whose bare branches reached out like skeletal fingers. Lampposts buzzed dimly, flickering as if struggling to stay awake. Some say Mary was crying. Others believe she was too angry to notice the chill. But something or someone was waiting for her that night. Somewhere along that lonely road, under the weight of silence and shadow, a car appeared. Whether it came barreling out of nowhere or simply failed to see her in the fog remains unclear. What we do know is that Mary was struck down, her body crumpled on the side of the road like a broken doll. The driver never stopped. Some say they didn't even know they'd hit her. Mary's family was devastated. She was laid to rest at Resurrection Cemetery, buried in her favorite dress, the same white gown she had worn that night. And that, most believe, is where Mary's story should have ended. But it didn't. Soon after Mary's burial, the first reports began to spread. Drivers traveling along Archer Avenue late at night started seeing something unusual. A young woman, alone and barefoot, dressed in a glowing white gown, standing by the roadside. Her face would be obscured in shadow, her figure faintly illuminated by the moonlight filtering through the trees. She looked lost, vulnerable, a lone soul in need of help. Those who stopped described the same unnerving pattern. Mary would approach their car with slow, deliberate steps, her voice soft and distant as she asked for a ride. She always had just one destination, Resurrection Cemetery. For most of the journey, she was silent. Drivers would glance nervously into their rearview mirrors, stealing glimpses of their passenger. Her face, they said, was pale and beautiful, but unsettlingly still, like a porcelain doll brought to life. A chill would creep into the car, the air turning so cold that their breath began to fog. Some claimed they could hear faint whispers like echoes of a song that once played at a dance long forgotten. But the most horrifying part always came at the cemetery gates. As the car approached, Mary would begin to tremble, her form becoming faint, as though she were fading away. Then, in an instant, she would vanish, gone. The seat where she had sat would be cold to the touch, and the driver would be left staring into the darkness, heart pounding, wondering if they had imagined it all. But they hadn't. One cab driver described picking up Mary near the ballroom. She was quiet, polite, though he noticed the strange chill that filled the air as soon as she entered. She gave him directions to Resurrection Cemetery, and he drove in silence, feeling increasingly uneasy. When he arrived at the gates, he turned to tell her they had reached her stop, but the back seat was empty. Another man claimed he had seen her standing in the middle of the road. Fearing he was about to hit her, he slammed on his brakes, skidding to a stop just feet away. Heart racing, he looked up to see nothing. The road was empty. He stepped out of his car, his breath misting in the cold air, and scanned the foggy darkness. That's when he felt it, the prickling sensation of being watched. He turned back to his car and froze. There, in the back seat, sat Mary, her expression blank, her eyes locked onto his in the rearview mirror. And then she disappeared. And then there are the handprints. For years, visitors to Resurrection Cemetery have reported strange marks on the gates, burned impressions as though someone had gripped the iron bars with fiery hands. Many believe these handprints belong to Mary herself, the remnants of her restless spirit trying and failing to escape her eternal prison. What makes Resurrection Mary's story so chilling is how persistent it is. Unlike other urban legends, her sightings have never stopped. To this day, locals and visitors alike whisper about Archer Avenue and the woman in white. Some claim they've seen her walking along the roadside, her figure barely visible through the heavy fog. Others hear strange sounds, footsteps that echo where no one walks, or the soft rustle of a dress moving through the trees. So the next time you find yourself driving down Archer Avenue late at night, keep your eyes on the road and your hands on the wheel. If you see a woman in white standing by the roadside, do not stop. She may look like someone in need of help. She may seem real, but she isn't. And if you ignore the warnings, if you dare to offer her a ride, just remember this: you might not be alone when you leave.